Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. Now, I got a strange email the other day from, well, it's not an anonymous email, but I don't recognize the email address. And all it said, no hi, no thank you, nothing like that. It just said, cut a paper thin opal. And I've been known to do that in the past. And because I've got this random request out of nowhere, I thought, you know what, let's do it. So have a look at this. So this is from Cooper You might think it looks like a black opal from here, but I'm guessing, looking at it, that it's going to be a dark crystal instead. It's most likely a piece of a shell, and here, yeah, it's not that thin. But if we rotate it around to the other side here, you'll see it does peter out to a really thin bar on this side. And see, you can see, it's tough to tell on camera probably, but you can see through, and you can see that potch backing on the back. So that does indicate that it is definitely going to be a dark crystal, which is still pretty cool. Now, when you're working something as thin as this, you can't be expecting too much of a gem. It's just so thin, there is a very good chance you're going to need to back and double it. This one, we'll see how it goes. We'll see what it's like when we get the full face. Of course, the face is going to be this side here with the little layer of mud on top of it, because this underside here does have that nice little potch backing, kind of like, I mean, I've heard people call it a natural doublet, but it is just a solid. So a solid opal, but when you've got crystal with a potch on the back, it'll make it slightly less translucent all the way through, and that does help emphasize the effect. You can still keep that little potch bar here and just flatten out this side and put some black glass or whatever. It just means you probably don't need to use a black epoxy when you're doing it if you're not gonna go straight through to the crystal. That's just to give it a bit more darkness to it. But this one is a really dark piece, blue greens. I don't know what the pattern's gonna be exactly from the front, but hopefully it's got a bit of play and we're gonna see. There's one way to find out, so time to spin up the Dremel and see how it goes. I might even be able to, there we go, look at that. Man, halfway done already and I didn't even turn on the Dremel. Spin, spin, cross your fingers and pray for me. This is never easy, but we do get a little bit lucky on this one, but also a little bit unlucky, and we'll see in very short time why that is. Just taking off the mud reveals a lot on this stone. As you would expect, because of the sand interface there, we've got a lot of it just kind of dispersing into the opal. But when we start scrubbing away, we are seeing that it's disappearing quite quickly, surprisingly quickly. And to be honest, if that doesn't happen when you start a stone, you're in for a world of pain and you might as well just drop it and move on. It really is nice that you can find out really quickly whether this is a fail stone or not. And on this one, I was pretty hopeful because I'm scrubbing away here and I'm noticing that half of the stone, the thicker half, is actually disappearing quite quickly, and the thinner half is not. Now the thinner half, it takes a lot less of an imperfection to be really negative. And you can see here, looking at it from this angle, that right side is not looking so good, but that left side is clearing up. And you might notice something very faint in the middle there starting to form, and we'll zoom in on that in just a moment. But for now, we're just taking off all the edges as well. You might as well do this at this point, especially if you've got any large inclusions or tapering, like in this end here. It's tapering down to absolutely nothing. That's not overly useful opal. And it's also sandy, so we're just going to trim that right back. There's no point keeping it. It's not going to be in the final stone. Might as well get rid of it early. But if you look really carefully in the center, you notice that I've just stopped carving, and that's because I've just noticed it. And there is a crack going all the way down the middle, or at least I think it's a crack. I couldn't get this thing to snap no matter how hard I tried. I even tried off camera, but on camera you can see I'm rearranging it, just really trying to push those thumbs in, and normally it's pretty quick and easy, but this one, it might have actually just been a potch line. I'm not 100% sure. I didn't look at it too closely under a loupe or anything. I instead just whipped out the cutting disc. So this is an electroplated diamond cutting disc, and just slice straight through the guts. You don't need to cut all the way. I just cut most of the way and then try again, and boom, snap. Easy. Super easy. Throw away the offcut. It had too much sand in it. The color was getting too thin, but this side is actually pretty good. It's pretty thick. Now you've got to go through and shape. Of course, still sticking to the 600 grits into diamond. If you're really impatient, yeah, you can drop back down for the shaping. Drop all the way back down to the 80 if you want, but you are going to have some chipping, so I don't recommend going too far down. but you can definitely go further than the 600 sintered. It's very gentle, but I like that when it comes to just minor shaping. I don't want to cut it too far. You can see here I've pretty much got the final shape locked in, but I'll do a little bit more with the Nova points. So the 280 grit Nova point is the black one, the one that does pretty much the last of the shaping and starts getting to a bit of a smoothness rather than a really chipped up face. And then I employ the rest of the A-team. I think the A-team's only meant to have 4 members, but mine has 5, so it's even better. The 4 Novas, 280, 600, 1200 and 3000, and then hitting it with the absolute captain of the team, and that is Cerium Oxide. This is a pure opal, so anytime there's pure opal and no ironstone or anything like that, I go Cerium Oxide. If there's anything else, any kind of inclusions or sandy spots or any kind of matrix at all, I will use aluminium oxide. But Cerium Oxide is the absolute king and the best to use when you can. So full opal, full Cerium Oxide. And let's have a look at the final result. Well, there we have it. Now it looks like quite a large little stone, but I'm telling you, this thing is actually only just over a carat, which is not that surprising when you look at how thin this thing is. Especially on this edge, the color bar gets real thin. We've got this nice little backing on it. It is certainly a dark crystal, even though you can see a lot of patterns and a lot of stones look like this from Lightning Ridge. This is definitely just a straight dark crystal from Coober Pedy. If I hold it on a bit of an angle, no, you can't really see it too well on the camera. Actually, one way you can tell is if I angle it like this, can you see that shadow that it's casting? So the light's penetrating and you can see that potchy back there. But if I rotate that around, you can see that cast in every direction in towards the center of the stone. Like here, you can see that line just there. That's you just seeing what's on the other side of this little potch bar. So trust me, it is definitely crystal, but it's a nice little dark crystal and it's got some pretty good colors. It's come up pretty clean. The offcut, this guy over here, I mean, the line that nature put in there for me to cut along, that was absolutely perfect. I tried my absolute hardest to try to crack it with my fingers instead of getting the saw out, but it was just not going. And you can see this is the half that had a lot of the inclusions and the color bar got super thin. Super thin, actually peters out just here. You're just catching the last of it there. It's still got color, but I would never be able to get rid of all of these little sandy inclusions and potchy inclusions. And I'm not 100% sure if it was a crack in here or whether it was just a really faint potch line that made me think it was a crack. Whatever it was, it wasn't helping me break it. So quick little simple slice. We end up with 2 halves. This one, offcut, not going to be overly useful. Maybe I can do something with it. And then this guy right here, which is pretty nice. At the right angle, it does have quite a lot of play in it. Quite nice pattern. And yeah, it's a little bit on the thin side. Setting this, I think I might just have to flatten out the back a little bit, then just glue something on it just to thicken it out, because this end to end could get a little bit flimsy, and when I'm setting it, I'm worried that it might crack. So I might still have to give it a little bit more of a backing, but you know what? It's a nice little stone. It's even got some hints of little bits of chaff coming through. If it was a black opal rather than a crystal opal, this effect would look a lot better. I'm just trying to find the best angle for it, but unfortunately, it's a little bit directional. This play is pretty good, but goes to show this is the kind of material you can get in really cheap parcels. A lot of the parcels that just beginner parcels that have a lot of this like thin shell material, don't give up on it. Bring it down, check it out. It takes a tiny inclusion for it to reach all the way through the color bar, which is the downfall. But like on this stone, we got a dodgy half, which is sad. Maybe I can cut it and take this bottom tail end here. If I keep it wet, we'll be able to see it a bit better. That bottom end, after this sand spot, we might still be able to make a square out of that. But you can also get pretty good pieces out of it as well, like this one here. So yeah, I see this material a lot. People send me photos of stuff they're working on, and this is a very common question. Paper thin gems, they are possible, but you're very much at the mercy of any inclusions, because as you can imagine, a single grain of sand can bridge that gap and just sit in the face, and there's no way you can get rid of it. Also, the other thing to keep in mind with this material is the dome. You're just not going to get much of a dome at all. It's going to be very small, and it's only barely going to be enough for you to just wrap that piece of metal over the top. If I chuck a backing on it, I can maybe dome it a little bit more. I can dome it down towards the bottom of this color bar, or at least match it to the opposite side and dome it down to this little edge here. At that point, I would be thinking I'll just take it all the way back to that line, doublet it, and then dome it. And even then, you're going to get a weird look because it's going to peter out on the edges. But you know what? It's very cheap material, fun to play with, and a good challenge. I do like tackling these thin bar projects every now and then, because you can be slightly surprised at the results. And the angle shot from the side, you can actually predict the color bar, what you're going to be left with on the face pretty well. It's not that different, the face, as you can see here, to what you can see along here. As long as it's not meant to be. Meant to be will confuse you and lie to you from the side. But this stuff plays much nicer. So hopefully that helps. And yeah, we ended up with a nice little 1 carat stone, bit over. Hopefully in the future I can do something with this stone, but for now I'll just have to chuck it in one of my cases and let it rest until I'm ready to try to set it. Or maybe doublet it. Anyway, good luck. I know many of you are tackling this type of material. Don't give up. Fight away. Every now and then you are going to end up with one that works out. Just keep at it, and I wish you all the best. See you later, guys.